Welcome to the most important week of the year for the podcast industry. Welcome to Podcast Movement 2025.
Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday at 9:15 a.m. Thank you for joining us today. We are talking about creative chemistry when brands and podcasts collide. Today, we're going to be diving into how advertising is evolving beyond the standard ad read with custom integrations, branded content, and activations that deepen the listener's connection to the advertisers. We'll be highlighting real-world examples and discuss how we can make these experiences feel like content that people crave. So, as we're all acutely aware, the industry has evolved and continuously evolves. And over the last few years, the creation of new content has been pretty stagnant. So we are tasked as advertisers and networks and creators of how do we continue to keep people engaged in this ecosystem. And at Oxford Road, we've been early adopters of figuring out how to deepen our relationships with creators. And so I am Courtney O'Connor. I'm the director of podcasts at Oxford Road. Oxford Road is the biggest podcast agency in the world at this point, and we work with creators, podcasts, YouTube, and social. So today we're joined by Saba and Zach. I will let you introduce yourself quickly.
Hello? Okay, thank you. I'm Saba. I'm a media buyer here at Oxford Road, and I will pass it along to Zach.
Can you hear me?
He can
Awesome.
figure out his mic.
Yeah, my name's Zach Boone. I am the head of podcast monetization at YMH Studios, which is just a fancy way of saying I do sales for YMH. YMH is we're a comedy network owned by comedians Tom Segura and Christina Pazinski. We represent shows like Two Bears, One Cave, Your Mom's House, Bad Friends, Are You Garbage, and about 16 other comedy shows.
Sweet, we got two experts here. All right, Saba, I'm going to start with putting you on the hot seat. So from a buyer's perspective, why are standard 30 to 60 second ad reads no longer cutting it?
I think obviously we saw a big boom following COVID, and as advertisers, we tried to figure out how to move away from the standard mid-roll, and whether that was through presented buys or brought to you by messaging, which we proved effective. I think we then, with video being the buzzword of these past events, I feel like that gave us a whole new channel to leverage. And what essentially, started happening is we were able to add a visual element. So we had opportunities to lay in banners or logos or on-screen activations. But I think what really happened is, in a world where hosts used to just be familiar voices, they started becoming recognizable and impressionable faces. And I think it brought a lot of life to partnerships and what we were able to activate. And I think the relationship that they built with their audience moved from audio only to, they kind of turned omni-channel. And I think in a world where those relationships are becoming omni-channel, I think we probably have to head in the same direction. And how do we break away from the 60-second mid-rolls that everybody else is doing and be more intentional with our partnerships?
Yeah, and Zach, I think I'd love to hear your POV on when the tides kind of turned. I know as an agency working with you directly, we were quick to jump on net new opportunities that did expand outside of the 60-second mid-roll. But from a sales perspective, when did you start seeing the tides turn here a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think Saba nailed it. Like, COVID was a real turning point for us. I was at a different company at the time, but it was still a very video-first company. And we had been pitching our sort of bullpen of products to advertisers for years before COVID. But then when it happened, it kind of forced advertisers and creators to sort of think outside of what they had normally have been doing. It got us to a point where we were pitching all sorts of different ideas. For instance, we went from producing shows in a studio to everybody being at home, or doing after everybody sort of got comfortable, they would do a live stream where they could safely social distance, and we would have like, one example, we had like a food delivery company that came in and brought chicken nuggets on a live stream so that they could play chicken nugget beer pong at a safe distance. Like, it's just like, yeah, COVID was a great sort of catalyst, and it sort of paved the way for everything that we're doing, that we've sort of done since then. But it was really helpful for us because we always had these capabilities, but it was really hard to get us to sell anybody on it. But then it became a necessity with COVID, and it sort of, like I said, it paved the way for where we are now.
Besides chicken nugget beer pong, what are the requests that you're getting from brands now in terms of the content that they're looking for?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's lots of different things. Usage rights is a big one. Like you do a 60-second mid-roll or a pre-roll or something, and they want to license that content to see it on social media as paid. That's a big one we're sort of navigating right now. Every creator sort of does it differently. Some are like, hey, we can include this as part of a year-long buy as added value. Others are like, yeah, I want like $40,000 for every 30 days you use this. And it just sort of runs the gamut, and we're trying to navigate that with each individual creator and each individual request. But also, I think it's an opportunity too to sort of get creative and expand outside what your comfort level is, and maybe even advertisers' comfort levels are. And it's a good way to sort of build trust with them. There's things, we've been doing micro mentions, which is like sort of, 5 to 10 second shout outs with a link in the description at the beginning for a lower CPM. Anywhere from like that to custom content to throwing in social media, and really kind of runs the gamut. But like, it really just comes down to like working with the advertiser and the creator to find something that they're comfortable doing, with the price tag that makes sense for everybody. It's a really interesting process, and each one of them is different. So, it takes you having to sort of figure it out each time.
Yeah, and I think working in a medium that was built on the authenticity of a host connecting with their audience, this is truthfully just a natural extension. And Saba, you brought up a great point of video podcasting rising does allow us to deepen our integration. So let's dive into the details here. I would love to hear from both of you an example or like a really good execution that you've seen recently or that you've worked on recently that kind of like encapsulates what we're talking about here.
Yeah, so we were able to kind of work through a lot of different cross-channel stuff. I think at Oxford Road, we've been able to kind of position ourselves as a specialized agency. So having that collaborative environment where we can talk to experts in the social space and the YouTube space, and at podcasts, I think it's built a lot of ground to be able to talk through partnerships like this. And I think one of the ones I can think of is, I think we were able to do a lot with a B2B brand where, we kind of worked through their journey as a host and how they were able to personally connect to the brand and talk through that experience and kind of create like unique, tailored, intentional content behind that was then distributed, and we actually did get usage rights on different platforms that scoped outside of audio and brought in social and different elements, and even for paid advertisement behind it. So I think that was a really good example.
Zach?
Sure, yeah. The one that comes to mind is one of the latest ones that we did was without getting too much in the details, it was a national sports brand with professional athletes, and we work with Bert Kreischer, who's a comedian, very larger-than-life personality, and we ended up working with the brand to send him to an actual event where he tailgated and cooked food for everybody, and then like created a custom video around it. But then outside of that custom content and actually sending him to a live event with his team, we had 60-second mid-rolls running on both sides of the content. We had social media. There was paid social as part of it, but also while he was there on site, he was like doing Instagram stories and stuff just as added value and something that the brand really appreciated. And it was great. They already want to work with us again next year. And but I also think it kind of speaks to like the collaborative effort that's required, I think, in these cases too, because like leading up to that big event where like you have a sort of, I guess you could call an A-list comedian attending a nationally televised sports event. It takes a lot of planning, with lots of different teams. It was like, I think we were on a Zoom call at one point, and it was Bert's team, it was my team, it was the agency, it was the brand, and then we also had representatives, like managers of the talent that were athletes who were going to be in that content as well, making sure that like there were things that were going to be brand safe for them as individual athletes. And like, I mean, there was probably 25 people on the Zoom call at the same time, and it was just this wild. And like, even before that call, we had a call with Bert's team, and then we had a call with the agency, and then we had a call with the agency and Bert's team, because we all wanted to make sure we were on the same page before we got on the call with the brand, to make sure that everybody was on the same page. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot different than the spots and dots of the 60 seconds and the pre-rolls and stuff, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I want to hone in on the setup piece, but quickly, when you're working with creators, we know creators can be a little finicky. How do you pick what brands you want to dive deeper in with? Like, are they being selective? Are they saying yes to everything? Because they have authenticity that they have to keep with their audience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it really depends. We say no a lot, and I think it's important that you're able and comfortable to say no. Like I told Sop I wasn't going to say this, but I had a call last week. I'm working on this deal with a comedian, and he was like, Zach, like, I'm going to be honest, like, my soul kind of dies anytime I talk about doing something. Like, it just kind of makes me feel like a shill if I'm doing something like, longer and more. And I was like, listen, like, it doesn't have to be like that. The brand that we're working with understands your brand, and they understand how important it is that you authentically connect with them. And we were able to work with them on something that, like, we didn't even know existed. And he went from like, I don't know if I want to do this, to like, oh my God, like, this is going to be awesome. So like, it's really just about finding the right fit for both sides. And it really just comes back to authenticity, I think.
Totally. And Saba, from your perspective, I mean, you spend all day finding the right fits for the brands that you work with. So how do you feel when you're told no?
Honestly, I kind of love it. It makes me realize that like creators are thinking about what they're doing and they care about their decisions. And like, I feel like at the end of the day, that really translates to the read and like their relationship that they have with the brand. Like, if they feel mediocre about it, maybe it doesn't make sense for a cross-channel opportunity. And like, we don't have to super hone in on every single one. Like, do I think cross-channel is going to be the next big thing? Probably not. I think it's going to be like a premium thing that we think about to double down on the relationships that work, and like whether that's from a brand perspective or like brand performance, or like, tailoring into like an audience that makes sense. And with the hosts, I think like it's gonna come across if they're not excited about it. So I think I love being told no.
We do love being told no, which is crazy. Not when we're talking pricing. Now, we are talking about something that takes a very high level of detail to execute. And Zach, as you were saying, there's a lot of people involved, or cooks in the kitchen, if you want to say. But I would love to talk about the challenges of executing these, because buying a 60-second mid-roll is, frankly, a lot simpler than buying across multiple channels. So Saba, as you mentioned, Oxford is structured in a channel-specific expert way. How are you putting together these deals internally, and how are we bringing them to brands effectively?
Yeah, I think, like you said, we have specialized departments like social and YouTube and everybody. We have these like cross-collaborative departmental syncs that we do, trying to like go through the different elements, what the social team would need, what the YouTube team would need. If I have any questions on podcasts, I think like we've effectively created a space for us to chat through those. And I think that collaboration is a huge part of making these partnerships work, because we want to make sure that we set expectations up front, that we chat through any questions that we have. And I think that's really invaluable. I think before all of that, I think that, being able to tap into other industry experts in different fields is really, really important. But also, I think some of the bottleneck that we have right now is it does require a lot of detail. And like, we've seen a lot of cross-channel media proposals that are 15 lines, but then like the impressions are all summed together with a total net cost at the end. And like, that doesn't give me any information. And, the social team, always hones in on, there's so many aspects to evaluating social, and they don't, at Oxford Road, we don't really look at it through impression buys for social. It's more about like the engagement level that they have. You don't just because you have 11,000, 1,100,000 like followers doesn't mean that all of them are going to see it, right? So all of it is mostly around like engagement rates and how to price it and the content that it comes with. Like, is it unique? Is it repurposed from the podcast? Like, we evaluate those differently too. And I think the bottleneck right now is gathering all that information, which takes quite a few emails back and forth. And, it seems like sometimes those details are a little bit of an afterthought, but they truly make all the difference.
Yeah, and I think it's unique because, like I said, we're a direct response agency. Everything we do at Oxford Road ties back to a KPI, every dollar that we spend. And it sounds like maybe a custom integration doesn't fit into that model, but it does. If you do it right and you take the time and expertise to dive into it, you can tie it back to performance. So, Zach, what are some of the roadblocks that you hit?
I mean, I think it really just all comes down to setting expectations and attention to detail. I think when you, especially as a seller, like, it's really easy to get excited about a deal and you want it to close. You want to figure it out, especially when you're talking like the larger side, which, when we're talking about custom content and stuff like that, the price tags can get pretty high, so it's really easy to kind of get carried away with like, just the dollar signs in your eyes, which sounds terrible. But like, at the end of the day, as a salesperson, I have a job to do. And like, so I think like, trying to like rein in your excitement and like really dive into the details and make sure you're getting everything right on the proposal and that you're able to deliver on everything that you say that you are. That's really, really important. I've certainly gotten myself in trouble before. It's not hard to do. But yes, I think it's like that, and then it's also, again, like finding the right partner for it, finding the right the right agency fit, the right brand fit for the talent, and then, but also trusting in yourself and knowing that you're the expert. Like, we know how to reach our audience the best way possible. And like, so it's, again, finding the right fit and the brand that can understand that and give you the trust to kind of go out and do your thing, which can be challenging for a lot of brands. So yeah, I mean, I think there are roadblocks and stuff, but like, I think as long as you go into it with eyes wide open and you over communicate, especially in the beginning, honestly, really throughout the whole process, over communication is key with these more complex deals. Yeah, I think that will help sort of clear the way for success.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, again, to work together, as you two do often, to ensure that we're packaging up these deals appropriately to go to our clients so that they make sense and that they can understand how this is going to lift their business. Okay, lightning, 2 questions. We have 3 minutes. What's the biggest opportunity in creative ad formats that you see for the ecosystem in the next 12 to 18 months?
I mean, I think we're kind of talking about it right now. I think the cross-channel opportunities where it makes sense, I think, is going to probably be one of the biggest opportunities that we have in this space.
You didn't prepare me for this one.
Curveball.
No, honestly, I kind of agree. Yeah, it's just really kind of starting to think more outside the box and get creative. And like, obviously, video has been the buzzword for a long time now. I think a lot of people are starting to adopt it where it makes sense, but it really does open up a lot of different opportunities for more creative and more integrated and impactful advertising. So yeah, I think the more we can tap into that, and then all the different sort of mediums that are popping up, live streaming and social, obviously. Yeah, it's just, all these brands like us, we've become media companies, and it's just figuring out how to leverage that into deals that get everybody excited.
Yeah, I know there's a few brands in the room here with us. If you were speaking directly to the brands, what should they be doing to make their podcast ads something that listeners crave? Another curveball.
Yeah, again, I feel like a broken record, but I think it just comes back to like just trust, allowing the creator to, articulate your brand points in their own voice. And like, I mean, this is nothing new. This is, influencer marketing. I mean, that's, podcasting is basically influencer marketing at scale in my eyes anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I think just it comes back to trust at the end of the day and just letting them speak authentically.
I think it comes down to like authenticity, like he said, but also like making those partnerships intentional and purpose built, I think, is going to be the big thing also.
All right, to recap, we heard be creative with your ad reads and your integrations. Thank you for joining us. We'll step to the side for questions, but have a great day.